Imagine sitting at Thanksgiving, surrounded by family laughter, the smell of roasted turkey filling the air, and your father-in-law slides a thick envelope across the table, right to you. Your hands shake, your heart pounds, and when you open it, it's divorce papers. Face screaming in fear high, "My name is Emily, and what I'm about to tell you is the most humiliating, terrifying, and ultimately empowering experience of my life." It was a crisp November morning, and I had spent hours in the kitchen with my husband, Mark, preparing for the family Thanksgiving dinner. The house smelled of turkey, pumpkin pie, and fresh bread. I had worked so hard to make everything perfect. After all, it was our first Thanksgiving with Mark's extended family in years. Mark's father, Richard, had always been difficult. Stern, controlling, and intimidating. He had a reputation for belittling everyone who crossed him. I had tried my best over the years to be polite, accommodating, and respectful, hoping to gain his approval. I never imagined that approval was never the goal, control was. The guests started arriving: cousins, aunts, uncles, and Mark's friends. Everyone laughed, shared stories, and reminisced about past holidays. I smiled, trying to relax, but there was a tension I couldn't shake. Richard's gaze occasionally flicked toward me, sharp and assessing. Something felt off. I focused on helping Mark with the finishing touches, carving the turkey and arranging the mashed potatoes. I laughed when my niece told a silly joke, hoping to push the unease aside. But deep down, I felt it, a storm brewing that I couldn't yet see. Dinner began, the chatter and laughter filling the room. But then, everything changed. Richard slid a thick white envelope across the table toward me. My heart stopped. My hands froze. I could feel the eyes of the entire family on me. Mark looked pale, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. He didn't say a word. My stomach turned over. Slowly, trembling, I opened the envelope. Inside were divorce papers. Real, legal, official divorce papers. My father-in-law had orchestrated this in the middle of our family gathering. Shock, anger, humiliation, they all crashed over me at once. I felt paralyzed. Tears threatened to spill, but I forced them back. This wasn't just an attack on my marriage, it was an attack on me publicly in front of everyone I loved. I glanced around. Some family members looked confused. Others were trying not to stare. Mark's father sat back, a smug expression on his face, as if he had just won some cruel game. In that moment, I realized something crucial. I couldn't react emotionally. Crying or screaming would only give him the satisfaction he craved. I needed composure, patience, and a plan. Earlier that day, my best friend Sarah had stopped by to wish me a happy Thanksgiving and had slipped a small envelope into my bag. I had assumed it was a card or a little note. I hadn't opened it yet. Now, sitting in shock with divorce papers in my hands, I remembered it. Trembling, I opened Sarah's envelope. Inside was a plan, a full strategy detailing steps to counter Richard's manipulations, protect my marriage, and ultimately turn the humiliation against him. Sarah had always been perceptive, fiercely protective, and intelligent. She had warned me about Richard's controlling nature for years, but I had ignored her advice. Now, I understood why she had prepared this envelope. She had anticipated exactly this scenario. The next few days were a delicate balancing act. I couldn't confront Richard directly. Instead, I had to act subtly. I maintained a polite demeanor, smiled when he spoke, and never showed my fear or anger. Meanwhile, I reviewed every detail in Sarah's plan. I documented Richard's manipulations, recorded conversations discreetly, and organized everything meticulously. Sarah's guidance taught me to anticipate his moves, identify weaknesses, and create a strategy that would allow me to reclaim control, not through anger, but through careful, calculated action. At the same time, I had to manage Mark. He was torn between loyalty to his father and trust in me. I gently reassured him, explaining that I wasn't acting against him, but against Richard's toxicity. Slowly, he began to understand, giving me the support I needed to move forward. Richard continued his subtle attacks, mocking my cooking, making belittling comments, and attempting to assert dominance over conversations. But I stayed composed, using each interaction to document evidence and test his weaknesses. At one family dinner, he criticized the way I prepared the gravy. I smiled politely, nodded, and said nothing. Behind the scenes, I had already compiled proof of his pattern of controlling behavior and his efforts to undermine me. Each small victory was empowering. Each attempt to provoke me that I successfully ignored built my confidence. And with each day, I grew stronger, more strategic, more ready for the ultimate confrontation. A week passed, and Richard's overconfidence became his biggest weakness. He underestimated my calm, my patience, and my intelligence. I could see doubt flicker in his eyes, small hesitations, as he attempted to control situations around me. Every minor interaction was a rehearsal for the final act. Sarah and I discussed every possible scenario, preparing for a public revelation that would leave him stunned, humiliated, and powerless. I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my marriage, and my life. The humiliation I had suffered at Thanksgiving had sparked a fire, and I was ready to let it burn, but with precision, not chaos. The next family gathering was set, Mark's promotion celebration. Everyone would be there. Richard, the extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles. I walked in that evening calm, composed, smiling politely, while beneath the surface I was brimming with anticipation. The moment had arrived. Richard greeted me with his usual smug expression, clearly confident he still had the upper hand. Little did he know, everything he had relied on, my fear, my submission, my inexperience, was gone. I had spent the past week meticulously planning every move, rehearsing each conversation, and preparing the evidence that would expose his manipulations once and for all. The room was alive with chatter, glasses clinking, laughter echoing. I smiled as if everything was normal. Mark followed behind me, subtly giving me his support. He had seen my composure, understood my plan, and trusted me. That alone gave me the courage to continue. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of Sarah's instructions. Calm, confident, let him underestimate you, then strike. Every word, every step, every reveal matters. Throughout dinner, I guided conversations subtly, asking casual questions that revealed Richard's controlling behavior in front of everyone. Without appearing confrontational. He tried to interrupt, inserting jabs and belittling remarks, but I had anticipated every single one. He's been so busy with his work, Emily, maybe that's why your gravy came out a bit lumpy, he said with a smirk. I smiled politely. Yes, Richard. I thought about adjusting the recipe, but then I realized it's important to try new things, even if they're a little imperfect. A small victory. The family laughed at the harmless remark, but Richard's expression flickered. His attempt to provoke me had failed. Later, I excused myself to the kitchen under the guise of fetching dessert. This was the signal. Sarah had arranged for the final evidence to be in my hands, and I was ready. I returned to the table with the envelope that had been waiting for this exact moment. Placing it gently in front of Richard, I spoke clearly. Richard, I think it's time the truth comes out. All eyes turned toward me. A hush fell over the room. Inside the envelope were carefully documented records. Patterns of his manipulative behavior, attempts to control my marriage, and proof of the humiliations he had orchestrated. I began to present the evidence calmly, methodically, making sure everyone understood the full extent of his actions. Gasps filled the room. Family members leaned forward, reading the documents, murmuring among themselves. The expressions on their faces ranged from shock to disbelief. Richard tried to interrupt, but I stopped him with a calm, unwavering tone. I suggest you listen carefully. This isn't about anger, it's about truth. His smug smile vanished, replaced by confusion, panic, and eventually, a flicker of fear. For the first time in years, he realized he had underestimated me. Mark's aunts and uncles exchanged glances, whispering. Some were incredulous, others nodded slowly, finally seeing Richard for what he truly was. The power dynamics had shifted. He could no longer control the narrative, and it was publicly apparent. I don't know what to say, he stammered, clearly at a loss. Say nothing, Richard, I replied. Just understand that control and humiliation aren't respect. Respect is earned, and trust is given, not manipulated. It was mesmerizing to watch him unravel, wordlessly defeated in front of everyone who had once admired or feared him. As the evening continued, I realized the full impact of my actions. I hadn't screamed, I hadn't yelled, I hadn't lost my composure. My revenge wasn't chaos. It was strategy, intelligence, and precision. I had taken the moment that was meant to destroy me and transformed it into a demonstration of strength. Mark, visibly relieved, reached for my hand. I knew you could handle this, he whispered. I smiled, realizing that we were stronger than ever as a couple. Together, we had faced toxicity and emerged victorious. Even Sarah's planning had exceeded expectations. Every document, every strategy she provided, every rehearsal had ensured that Richard would never see it coming. By the end of the evening, the damage to Richard's reputation was complete. He had been exposed not through shouting or dramatic confrontation, but through undeniable evidence and calm authority. He had lost his grip on the family, his influence diminished permanently. I watched him leave the table later, a quiet defeat evident in his posture. It was a subtle revenge, but the most satisfying kind, one that left him powerless while I emerged confident, dignified, and respected. The weeks following the reveal were transformative. Family members who had been manipulated by Richard began to speak more freely, boundaries were respected, and Mark and I rebuilt our marriage on a foundation of trust and partnership. I also realized something crucial. Revenge isn't about anger or aggression. It's about patience, strategy, and reclaiming your dignity. Every moment of humiliation I had endured became a stepping stone toward empowerment. I had learned to trust my instincts, anticipate manipulations, and act decisively. I wasn't just avenging myself, I was transforming the situation into an opportunity for personal growth. Looking back, I understand now that the ultimate revenge isn't about making someone else suffer. It's about taking control of your life, standing up with strength, and refusing to let others define your worth. Richard thought he controlled everything, but the truth is, underestimating someone who refuses to be intimidated is the fastest way to lose. I took what was meant to break me and turned it into my ultimate victory. And sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is watching someone realize they misjudged you completely. If you loved this story and want more shocking, real-life revenge tales, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Comment below, what would you have done if you were in my place? Confront, forgive, or plan your own revenge. I love reading your thoughts and discussing these intense, emotional stories. Stay tuned for more tales of betrayal, strategy, and ultimate triumph. Fire.